Initial D.
The year was 1999. I just got myself a copy of America Online with 36 hours free trial. My current screen name was Noi316. The Backstreet Boys wanted it that way, and NSYNC wanted you back. Every Asian girl I knew with a C cup and up was quote unquote an import model, and I had just gotten done with high school. Hi, I'm Noi. And 1999 was a great year. Obviously, I just got done with high school. I am thinking about college. I came to the decision that I have seen the same faces my entire academic life. From elementary school to middle school to high school, I saw the same faces. I hung out with the same people. And I just wanted to do something different. And so I decided to pack up my car and head west, my friend, all the way to San Diego. It was not easy. I probably took about $160 and some credit cards, and I just went west. I just said, I'm leaving. I packed up and I was gone. And I didn't stop because I'm a guy. And so lots of Gatorade bottles, drinking, peeing in them, chucking them out the window. If any police officer are listening, the statute of limitation is over and you can't get me for littering. But it took me about 3 days to get from Rochester to the West Coast. I didn't really stop for anything, no sightseeing or any of that. I honestly wish, like, if I could do it again, I probably would have done the Oregon Trail. I believe it's Missouri, Independence, Missouri, and all the way to Oregon. And just to say I did it, I think that would be great. I wouldn't have any oxen, but I would probably die of dysentery. Always chalk up the wagon, kids. But great thing about the West Coast is that they're very close to Japan, and so there's lots of Japanese people out there, lots of Japanese culture out there, and of course car culture. And growing up on the East Coast, all of my friends were at the time into drag racing. Obviously, if you had a Civic, you had a Mitsubishi Eclipse. Some people did have a Supra, and that was all fine and good. I was not a speed freak. I was always afraid. I got into a lot of car accidents. Strangely enough, none of them were me driving, except for my final car accident was me driving, but I handled it. And according to first responders, I had good reaction, and I actually saved my passengers, so good on me. But out there, I discovered drifting. And it wasn't at a car event. It wasn't at any car show or anything. I was actually at an arcade. I was watching this guy play Ridge Racer, and he was using the manual shift, and he was just driving around corners and just flicking the gears up and down, and just watching this thing. I was like, wow, this is actually really, really cool. The car is like going sideways, and it was almost like a ballet, just watching it. And I know it was a video game, but I never knew somebody can drive like that. I never watched anything like that before in my life. It was like discovering pro wrestling for the first time, And so I asked him, like, hey man, like, what are you doing, And he's like, just drifting. And I was like, what the hell is drifting? And he explains to me this whole thing about the mechanics of, braking and accelerating and being in the proper gear. And it was so technical, and yet, like, it was simple. And I just talked to this guy for probably like an hour, almost 2 hours. And he's like, you want to go, like, check out my car? And I'm like, all right, like I've seen, Civics, and I've seen like Honda Accords. And I'm like, all right, whatever, man. Like, sure. And we go out there, and he has a 1994 Toyota MR2, and it was like pearl white, and it was beautiful, really. I had a 1991 Nissan 240SX later on, and that's because I really, really wanted an MR2, but I couldn't find one, and the 240SX was in my price range. But that was later on. But I'm looking at this thing, and it's pristine. I'm so used to like cars being rusted and just just badly taken care of, considering all of my friends that I've been with. And it's in San Diego, and so no salt, no snow, and this thing just looks beautiful. And I'm complimenting him on it, and he's like, he's beaming with pride, which is cool. I get it. Like, he put a lot of work into it. And then I noticed a little decal on the back left window, the back passenger window, and it said Initial D. And I'm like, hey, is that like your car club or something like that, part of the team? And he's like, no, it's an anime. And I'm like, oh, cool. I didn't really get into anime. Then I watched a couple things. I liked some of the video games, like the Fatal Fury anime, obviously Dragon Ball. But I never really got into it. And so he's telling me about this, and about this kid who drives a Toyota Corolla, and he's like delivering tofu, and he just becomes like an amazing driver. And so I'm watching it. I get a couple VCDs, which, if you guys don't know, VCDs are like precursors to DVDs, essentially video CDs, video discs. And there's no chapters, there's no special features or anything. It's just the movie. And so I'm watching it, and at first it's kind of a slow burn. They're introducing you to the characters, and they're introducing you to the sidekicks first, and then you see the kid driving. You see Takumi Fujiwara, and he's driving, and he's drifting, and the reason for that is because his father wakes him up early in the morning to go deliver tofu to this hotel it's up on a mountain, and it's so early in the morning that he wants to get home as quick as possible, and so. By drifting, it allows you to get a forward momentum while not using your brakes as much, and so you're essentially taking better care of your car, and so it's also teaching you how to control your car. And he's doing this just so he can get home early and go back to sleep before school starts. And I just thought that was interesting. And I started watching it, and it got so much better. Like I said, it was a slow burn, but once it got to the initial race between Takumi Fujiwara and Keisuke Takahashi, they're talking about how like there's no way this Toyota Corolla, the Torino, is going to be able to beat a Mazda RX-7, which, I mean, in a straight line, yeah. The Mazda RX-7 has, 286 horsepower? The gentleman's bet. The gentleman's agreement, where all cars are 286 horses. And the Corolla had like 110 horses, I believe. But if you're going downhill, it doesn't matter. If they're going uphill, obviously, like, the more power. But if you're going downhill, it's all about control. And I thought that was an interesting concept. And so I'm watching the race, and, Takumi's just doing his thing. He's not caring, basically. Like, he did it because his dad told him to do it. And his dad said, if you win, I'll give you a full tank of gas, which in Japan, gas is very expensive. So Takumi decides to do it, and he does it where kind of reluctantly. Like I said, he doesn't want to actually race, but he gets to use the car. And so he does it, and he beats Keisuke, and he becomes like a downhill legend. And I'm like, not for nothing, but like drifting in its early days, and this is still before like he became big, before like you saw Ken Block doing things. If you had a rear wheel drive car and you just learned how to drive, learn how to control the car, then drifting is actually a lot cheaper than drag racing. I mean, I've seen all my friends like, putting cold air intakes, putting turbochargers, and putting intercoolers in there, just upgrading what they already had, spending thousands and thousands of dollars, sometimes buying the car, 2, 3, 4 times over. And with drifting, especially in California, the cars are actually in fairly decent shape. You just need a rear wheel drive. You need a set of tires, and California actually sells used tires. So if you burn through them, you just go to the used tire lot and you grab some more. And it's not as expensive. Is it safe? Well, I guess. I mean, the car isn't really going that fast. You don't really need to go that fast to get yourself sideways. I come to find out. And so I got really, really into the anime. And like the characters are so well represented. You see a character that you think is just a side person, you'll never see them again, and they're actually recurring characters, and they have lives outside of the races that you see. They're working, they're doing their own, they're going through their own personal thing. And sometimes like the filler episodes actually talk about the side characters, which is, I think, is great. And so I talked to this guy a couple more times, and he got me in contact with a friend of his who was selling a 1987 Toyota Corolla GTS, the hatchback, and it was black. It was just really, really primer black. He just got it painted, and at the time, the guy was like, yeah, sure, if you want to buy it, it's available. It's $800, and I go, at this time I'm already working, and so sure, I needed a car anyway. So for $800, I got myself a nice car. It was not very powerful, even by those car standards. It was probably at best, before I did a tune-up and before we took care of it, at best it was probably like 80 horsepower. And the entire time that I've owned it, if I went over 90 miles per hour, it would pop out of gear, even in the highway, which was incredibly dangerous and like unexpected. And so I bought the car. I took it to my friend who took his own life, and we slowly but surely got it back up and running to par. Got it up to par, and I decided to paint it, and obviously, because I'm now a big fan of Initial D, I decided to give it the Panda paint job. So white up top and black on the bottom, the Panda Torino. And I started using eBay to get like the Japanese stuff, the tail lights, the bumpers here and there, and to complete the look, I went to Pep Boys and got some square fog lights, and they were like $50. And so all of this, like, I paid $800 for the car. I paid about another $400 to get back to snuff, and then the paint job was another $1,000, and I got roughly about $2,800, and I got myself a really, really nice car. Like, you get friends who hook you up and things like that, and I really, really wanted the wheels. Those were the hardest things to get, even in those days. It's super, like, ridiculously hard now. You're probably paying, $4,000 or $5,000 for these wheels. The Watanabe RS 8-spoke wheels. and there was an import shop in downtown San Diego that specializes in getting these wheels. And so I'm working for a fairly good company, and so I'm making decent money. Plus, I'm single at the time, and so we get these wheels, and Watanabe RS tires are, mwah. And so now I'm feeling it. I'm like, yeah, this is exactly what I want. This is my dream car. 110 horsepower, 90 mile per hour, pop it out of gear, death trap. But I got the car. I got the hero car. And somebody jokingly said, hey, man, you should put the tofu sticker. I'm like, no, I'm not going to go that far, And so I was driving that around for a bit, and then I slowly but surely tried to get myself into drifting. And there's a lot of like little mountain pass in San Diego, especially if you're going to like the casinos. There's tons of mountains up there. And so I tried to do it, the usual, like, go up to speed, come around a corner, pull up on the e-brake, and then try to maneuver yourself. First one I did, I almost hit the guardrail, and that was it. That was my drifting career. Almost hit the guardrail, lost a little control, went into like some gravel, and then back onto the road. And then I stopped, adrenaline's pumping, I'm breathing hard, and so I pull over, I get out to look at the car, see if everything was okay. Some paint chips, nothing major. And I said, all right, that's it. I just spent all this money on this car. And I almost trashed it. I almost killed myself, probably. And so that was the end of my drifting career. But I continued to drive the car around and, got a lot of props for it. And then let's go back. Let's go back to the music. Let's talk about the music of Initial D. Eurobeat. I'm sure some of you have heard it. Some of you haven't. Actually, if you're a Rock City Wrestling fan, I could talk about this later. My theme song by Ayumi Hamazaki is actually Eurobeat. And so what that is just upbeat, fast pace with either Japanese or a European guy who sings phonetically. And the top band is Move, Move, and they're the one that do the theme song for Initial D. They do Around the World at the beginning, and then they do Rage Your Dream at the end. Fantastic band. I don't think they're together anymore, but I still listen to it to this day. Alex listens to it; he knows it. The other guy is a European guy. I don't know where he's from, but Dave Rogers does the song Space Boy, which opens up Initial D Stage 3. And he posted on Instagram a couple weeks ago saying, thank you for supporting me, and thank you for listening to my music. And he's posing in front of a Trueno, Trueno, which is the Japanese equivalent of the 87 Corolla that I had, which in Initial D they actually go by chassis. So the 87 Corolla I had was actually called the AE86. The RX-7 that Keisuke was driving was the FD3S, and the RX-7 that his brother Ryosuke was driving was the FC3S. Yeah, I'm a nerd. And so Dave Rogers was like, thank you, and he's posing in front of this car. And I actually replied to him and said, no, thank you, because of you, because of your music, and because of the show, I sold a car that I bought for $800 for, I think it was like 3 or 4 times what I actually paid for it. I actually ended up selling it for a little over $8,000 because of the anime. It got really big on the West Coast. It didn't really pick up until later on. But you go on Instagram and you watch all these guys go, yeah, I don't watch anime, and then they end up paying like $10,000-$15,000 for this like 30-year-old car. So take that. But going back to the music, It was the soundtrack of my college years, soundtrack of my West Coast life. Like there was just something about it that just gave me, it was energetic. It was like I said, it was upbeat. Even though I was feeling down, I'll listen to like some Eurobeat, and I would, I would feel good again. In fact, Eurobeat, I wouldn't say saved my life, but got me back into the mindset. One of the one of one of the car accidents I got into, I had actually bounced my head off the driver's side window when I got into to an accident. I hit a this wasn't a telephone pole, but I hit a pole and completely spun the car around. It was a one person accident. Brakes had locked up and car just spun, and I hit my head, and I called my roommate to say, hey man, I got in a car accident. Don't wait up for me. I'm okay. Everything's good. And he tells me later on that that I didn't say that in the voicemail. That I had actually just goes, hey man, hey man, and so that goes on for about I believe like 2 or 3 minutes. Shout out to Shane, my roommate, and for the longest time, like after that accident, I had a fear of speed, and I wasn't even speeding when I got in that accident. Like I said, it was a 1988 Nissan 200SX. It's the rear wheel drive, same engine as the 300ZX. That was non-turbo. And I was just driving along, and I was doing like probably 50, and I just stepped on the brakes, and I held it too long, and those weren't anti-lock brakes. And so what happened was they locked up, and I spun out, and I got in a car accident. And that was probably one of my last ones. That was the one that caused me to go colorblind for a little bit too. And so for the longest time after that accident, I couldn't speed. I couldn't go above 35 miles per hour. There was just something blocking me. Like I got so scared. If you watch the what was that movie, Talladega Nights, with Ricky Bobby, and he couldn't go fast. That's exactly what happened to me. I had this fear of speeding. And other than that, I was perfectly fine, aside from partial color blindness, real briefly. But I had downloaded the soundtrack for Wangan Midnight, which is another car anime. And I'll talk about that later. I didn't really get too much into it. I actually saw the live action version of that, which was pretty close. A lot better than a live action version of Initial D, I'll tell you that. But that's a show for another time. But I downloaded the soundtrack to Wangan Midnight, and I put it in, and I'm listening to it. It's a mellow start, It's slow, couple piano and guitar strings, and then it starts to ramp up, and so I'm getting off the exit, and the exit to the left of the exit is Frontier Field, which is where the Rochester Red Wings play. And they had just won the game. The game was over, they just won. And every time the Red Wings win, they would shoot off fireworks. And so I'm exiting, the song's ramping up, and the fireworks are going off. And then finally the song hits the crescendo, like it hits where it starts to, really take off. And I'm watching the fireworks, and I start stepping down on the gas, like it's coming back to me. And next thing you know, I'm looking down, and it's like 55, 60, 65. Yeah, I'm speeding as I'm getting off the exit. But that song's playing at right moment, right time, sort of thing, fireworks, and I'm just feeling it. And then I get off to the red light where Clinton Ave is, and there's a bum asking for change. And so that was the story of me getting my speed back. Anyways, back to Initial D. And so it's about Takumi Fujiwara, and he starts to race, and he's winning, and his legend is building up, and so he starts to get more famous. Other people from other prefectures are asking to race him, and he's winning because they're always racing him on his mountain, on the mountain that he's been essentially training his entire life. And then eventually, like, the engine gives up, the engine blows, and then he gets a new one, and the car is just completely different. He has to relearn how to drive it. And then, obviously he's the hero, so he's constantly winning. But what I really liked about it is it wasn't so much about the cars, it wasn't so much about the races, it was actually about the people. And Takumi is actually a fleshed out character, and I kind of get him. I gravitate towards him in that he's kind of aloof when it comes to things. Like, he'll do his job, he'll hang out with his friends, but he's not always there at times. Like, they'll discuss cars and he'll just watch the videos with them, but he has completely no interest in it, which is kind of like me. Like, I'm off in my own little world, even when I'm with people. And so, he's kind of like that character where it's like Han Solo. Essentially, he wants nothing to do with anything, but when responsibility calls, he's there to take it. And so that's me in a nutshell. And then as the stages progressed, each season is called stages. So first stage, second stage, third stage is a movie, which is pretty good. Fourth stage is when he actually joins the team. They build a new team, and they essentially go out in Japan and start racing other crews. Fifth stage is when, like, I guess, better way to say it, shit got real. One particular episode that comes to mind has nothing to do with Takumi. It actually has to do with Ryosuke. And Ryosuke is the leader of Takumi's first rivals, which is the Red Suns. He drives the FC, and his father owns. Well, I don't remember if he owns it or he runs a hospital. Like, he runs. Yeah, no, he owns a private hospital. Yeah, his father's a doctor. And Ryosuke is also training to be a doctor. But before that, he was a very, very good racer, and he almost went professional. And then something happened, and he decided not to go professionally. And you come to find out what that was. And basically, he had gone to medical school, fell in love with this girl who was in a grade above him. And they start dating, And so he finds out that she's in an arranged marriage. And she tells him, you forget about me, live your life, what have you. And so he does. They break it up, and she starts seeing this guy who she's arranged to. And after a while, she finds out that she's still in love with Ryosuke, and so she breaks it off with this guy who she was arranged to. And because of that, because she broke off her engagement to this guy, she brings shame to her family. And it turns out that her father works for the family of the guy she was arranged to be married to. And so he's like, you need to go and apologize to the family. Maybe they'll accept you back in. She refuses. He smacks her a couple times, actually, which, again, wow, impactful. And, he calls her all these names and says, you need to go and apologize to his family. And again, she stands her ground. She doesn't. And then the guy who she breaks it off with was, incredibly in love with her. And he's, like, constantly trying to, get her back, and she's refusing. And Ryosuke's also moved on. And so she actually ends up taking her own life because of the shame and everything that she went through. And so this guy is blaming Ryosuke for her taking her own life. And he gets he gets in contact with Ryosuke. He challenges him to a race, and this guy is pretty much saying, "Hey, you know, if you race me, I will kill you." And so they race, and the guy, I forget his name right now. I believe it's Rin. Yeah, the guy's name is Rin, and he drives a R32 Skyline. And he's basically hitting Ryosuke during the entire race. He's trying to literally take him off the road. And the episode goes in and out of flashbacks. So they're thinking, you know, Ryosuke's thinking about how he first met this girl, and then Rin's also thinking about how he met the girl, and then they're going back and forth essentially. And it's going through chapters of the relationship. And then towards the end of it, you know, he's still blaming Ryosuke, and he's not so much angry at Ryosuke. He's blaming himself. And so by the end of it, he decides he's going to kill himself on the second anniversary of her death. So he just speeds along, and Ryosuke knows what he's going to do. He knows he's going to kill himself by essentially slamming his car into a toll booth. And so he pulls up in front of him. And there was another car that just happens to be to watch the race, to make sure that, you know, that everything's going fine. And the other car, it's a 350Z, pulls up next to Ryosuke, and they both decide to brake at the same time to essentially slow Rin down. And they do. They both combine braking, and they're like very close to hitting the toll booth. And it's an incredibly emotional episode, like especially with the weight of, you know, what's going down here. And it's the emotion of the race, the emotion of the relationships these two share. And then at the very end, like, they both experience the girl's spirit sitting in their passenger seat. And that's when, like, they finally clicks, like, you know, what the hell are we doing, sort of. And they have a cordial conversation at the end where it's like, you know, like, she was with us tonight on the anniversary of her death. Like, I smelled her perfume. Like, you know, you also smelled her perfume. And, you know, there's no way anybody here would be wearing that perfume at this very moment. And it was just real poignant, very impactful. And just like that, like an anime, you know, a cartoon bringing that much emotion out of you, the watcher. And so I believe that's actually the last episode I watched. It went on a little bit past that, and then I think it's finally done now. So I'm probably going to pick up the DVD, if not the Blu-ray, if they made a Blu-ray. But most likely I'll probably pick up a Malaysian DVD or something like that. But yeah, it taught me that, Initial D taught me that, first of all, you can really get away with selling those old cars. But, like, you don't have to be rich. You don't have to be, you know, privileged. You just have to hone your skills with what you have. And so, yeah, like a 110 horsepower car can absolutely beat a 286 horsepower car downhill. You don't, you know, yes, if you have a lot of money, you can win a drag race because you can just add parts. But drifting, it's skill and will, apparently. So that's why I like Initial D. That's what this episode is about. And so I highly recommend you watch it. Let me know. Let me know how you like it. Like I said, it's a slow burn, but it definitely stays with you. And to this day, I haven't seen it in over a decade, and I still think about it. So that's it for this episode. Next week, I talk about video games and video game tutorials and why I hate tutorials. So catch you then. If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section of the podcast. Please give me a 5-star rating, because that actually helps, especially towards year's end when they start tallying up the votes. Last year, I was in the top 30th percentage of subscribers. So not bad for, I think, only like 8 episodes. Check me out on Instagram. Hi, I'm Noi. on Instagram. KingCado81 on Twitter. I'm barely on Twitter, so no worries. But yeah, that is it. Check out Initial D. Try to pick up a 1987 Toyota Corolla if you have never driven one of those before. Good luck affording it, especially in good condition. But that is it, and I will see you next week. Bye.
Initial D.